The stars had been silent for 300 years. Captain Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the cold metal of the observation deck's viewport, watching the endless void stretch before her. The Harbinger, humanity's last active warship, drifted through the outer rim of the Sol system like a ghost haunting its own grave. Behind her, the skeletal remains of Earth's once mighty fleet floated in perfect formation, a graveyard of dreams and ambition. "Another quiet night in paradise," muttered Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, joining her at the window. His withered face reflected the distant glow of Earth's moon, making the scars from the last war look like silver threads. Sarah didn't respond immediately. She was thinking about the stories her grandmother used to tell, stories of when humanity reached for the stars with both hands, when their ships carried explorers and colonists instead of weapons and warriors. Before the silence. Before the galaxy went dark. "Sometimes I wonder if we're just ghosts," she said finally. "Guarding the graves of better men." Jake snorted. "Speak for yourself, Cap." "I'm very much alive, thank you." He gestured toward the dormant fleet. "And so are they, technically. Just sleeping." The Deathworlder fleet. That's what the history books called it, though Sarah had always hated the name. It made them sound like monsters, like some plague unleashed upon the galaxy. But the truth was simpler and sadder. They were the last children of a dying world, trained to fight wars that never came. Earth had built them in the aftermath of the first contact disaster. When humanity's naive diplomatic mission to the Proxima Centauri system had been met with plasma fire and the complete annihilation of the ambassador's hope, the species had reacted with typical human intensity. They'd militarized everything, turning their entire civilization into a war machine capable of projecting force across interstellar distances. The Deathworlder fleet had been the crown jewel of this effort, 67 ships crewed by the hardest, most ruthless fighters humanity could produce. Men and women who'd been trained from childhood to see the galaxy as a hostile place that needed to be conquered before it could conquer them. They'd called Earth a death world because it produced such fierce warriors, beings capable of surviving in environments that would kill most other species. But the enemy never came. The aliens who destroyed the ambassador's hope had vanished as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving behind only wreckage and silence. Humanity had waited, weapons ready, for 3 centuries. The Deathworlder fleet had patrolled the outer systems, their crews growing old and dying and being replaced by new generations of warriors with no wars to fight. Now Sarah was the last active captain, commanding the last active crew, watching over 66 sleeping giants. "Contact!" The shout came from the bridge, transmitted through the ship's intercom with an urgency that made Sarah's blood run cold. She and Jake exchanged glances before running toward the command center, their boots echoing off the metal deck plates. Ensign Kim Parker was hunched over the communications console, her young face pale with excitement and fear. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. Long range, high energy. It's not human." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing static and interference. Then, slowly, an image began to form. Sarah had seen plenty of alien faces in the historical records, the brief, grainy footage from the ambassador's hope before its destruction, the scattered reports from deep space probes. But this was different. This was live, real, happening now. The being on the screen was tall and graceful, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shift between silver and blue. Its eyes were large and multifaceted, like cut gems, and when it spoke, its voice carried a musical quality that made Sarah think of wind chimes. "Greetings, children of the Third World," it said, the words somehow translating themselves in Sarah's mind. "I am Zephyr of the Endless Sky, speaker for the Galactic Confluence. We have come to deliver a message of great urgency." Sarah stepped forward, her military training taking over. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Harbinger. State your intentions." The alien's head tilted slightly, a gesture that seemed almost amused. "Direct. Efficient." The reports were accurate. It paused, and Sarah caught a glimpse of what might have been sadness in those jeweled eyes. "We come seeking the Deathworlder fleet. The galaxy has need of its strength." "The fleet is decommissioned," Sarah said carefully. "Has been for decades. But not destroyed." Zephyr of that endless sky leaned forward, and Sarah could see the desperation bleeding through its composed exterior. Captain Chen, the galaxy is dying. The Devourers have returned, and they bring with them the end of all things. We need warriors who can stand against the dark. We need the children of the Deathworld. Sarah's mind raced. The Devourers, she'd heard whispers of them in the old records, fragments of myths and legends from the earliest days of interstellar travel. Ancient beings that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty void in their wake. Most scholars dismiss them as folklore, stories told to frighten children. Even if what you're saying is true, Sarah said, the fleet isn't mine to command. I'm just a caretaker. Then wake them. The alien's voice carried a weight that seemed to press against Sarah's soul. The Devourers moved through the Andromeda spiral, consuming everything in their path. 3 civilizations have fallen in the past solar cycle. The confluence estimates we have perhaps 10 cycles before they reach this galaxy. 10 years. Sarah felt the number settle into her bones like ice. Why us? Jake asked, stepping up beside her. Why not handle this yourself? Zephyr of the endless sky's expression grew pained. Because we are not warriors, Commander Morrison. We are builders, explorers, philosophers. We have created wonders beyond your imagination, but we have forgotten how to fight. How to kill. How to die for something greater than ourselves. The alien's gaze fixed on Sarah. But you remember. Your people were forged in conflict, shaped by struggle. You are what we cannot be. Sarah stared at the alien, then at the tactical display showing the positions of the dormant fleet. 66 ships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and warfare. 66 crews in cryogenic suspension, waiting for a war that had never come. Give me proof, she said finally. I won't wake sleeping giants based on stories. The alien nodded, and the screen changed. Sarah watched in horror as star systems died, consumed by something vast and dark and hungry. Worlds reduced to ash in moments. Billions of lives snuffed out like candles in a hurricane. The Melkari system, Zephyr of the endless sky said softly. Home to 14 billion souls. It fell 3 days ago. Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of decisions settling on her shoulders. When she opened them again, her voice was steady. I'll need full tactical data on these Devourers. Composition, capabilities, weaknesses. You will help us? I'll wake the fleet. Sarah turned to Jake. Signal all ships. Emergency revival protocol. Full battle readiness in 72 hours. Jake's weathered face split into a grin. Now that's what I've been waiting to hear. Time to remind the galaxy why they called us Deathworlders. The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity. The Harbinger became the center of a storm of awakening as ship after ship came online. The revival process was brutal, 3 centuries of technological advancement compressed into emergency protocols that brought crews from cryogenic sleep to combat readiness in hours instead of weeks. Sarah watched it all from the command center, feeling like a conductor orchestrating a symphony of controlled chaos. Status reports flooded in from across the fleet. Dreadnought Ragnarok online. Crew revival at 97%. Weapons systems nominal. Battlecruiser Nemesis reporting ready. All departments green. Carrier Apocalypse launching fighter wings. CAP established. Each ship that came online was a piece of humanity's war machine flexing its muscles after centuries of sleep. The captains who reported in were legends, men and women who'd trained their entire lives for this moment, who'd volunteered to sleep until the galaxy needed them again. Captain Marcus Iron Dog Rodriguez of the Ragnarok was the first to come aboard the Harbinger for the emergency briefing. Sarah had read his file, a man who'd earned his nickname by refusing to retreat from a pirate stronghold even after his ship had been crippled, fighting with nothing but emergency systems and pure stubbornness until reinforcements arrived. Sarah Chen, he said, clasping her hand with a grip that could crack stones. I remember when you were just a lieutenant on the Vengeance. Look at you now, waking up the whole damn fleet. Good to see you too, Marcus. Sarah gestured to the tactical display. I wish it were under better circumstances. One by one, the other captains arrived. Captain Elena Vasquez of the Nemesis, who'd single-handedly developed the combat doctrine that had defined fleet operations for the past century. Captain Ahmed Hassan of the Apocalypse, the youngest captain in fleet history and their premier expert on fighter tactics. Captain Lu Wei of the Defiance, whose ship had been the testbed for humanity's most advanced weapons systems. When they were all assembled, Sarah activated the holographic display. The galaxy spread out before them, a spiral of light and shadow. Red markers showed the path of the Devourer's advance, a cancer eating its way through the Andromeda galaxy. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah began, meet the enemy. The briefing took hours. Zephyr of the Endless Sky had provided detailed intelligence on the Devourers, beings of pure entropy that existed to consume and destroy. They traveled in vast swarms, their ships organic constructs that could adapt and evolve in response to enemy tactics. They'd wiped out 3 major civilizations in the past decade, and their scouts were already probing the outer edge of the Milky Way. They're not just conquering, Sarah explained. They're unmaking. Every world they touch becomes a dead zone where nothing can exist. They're the opposite of life itself. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward, studying the tactical data. Numbers? Conservative estimates put their main fleet at over 10,000 ships. But they're not like our vessels, each one is a living thing, capable of self-repair and adaptation. They learn from every battle, becoming stronger and more dangerous. And we're supposed to stop them with 67 ships? Captain Vasquez asked. 67 ships crewed by the finest warriors humanity has ever produced, Sarah corrected. Don't forget what we are. We're not just soldiers, we're the children of a world that tried to kill us from the moment we were born. We're the species that looked at a hostile galaxy and decided to make it our playground. Captain Hassan smiled grimly. The Confluence called us in because they need monsters to fight monsters. Exactly. Sarah activated another display, showing the proposed battle plan. We're not going to fight them in our galaxy. We're going to meet them in the void between galaxies, where they can't use consumed worlds to replenish their forces. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. The Deathworlder fleet would launch immediately, using their ship's experimental jump drives to cross the intergalactic void in a matter of weeks instead of centuries. They would establish a forward base in the ruins of the Andromeda galaxy and begin a campaign of guerrilla warfare, striking at the Devourer's supply lines and support structures. It's a one-way trip, Sarah said bluntly. Even if we win, we'll never see Earth again. The jump drives can make the crossing once, maybe twice if we're lucky. This is our last mission. The captains exchanged glances. Captain Lu Wei spoke first. What about our families? Our lives? We gave those up the day we took the oath, Captain Rodriguez said quietly. We swore to protect humanity, no matter the cost. This is the cost. One by one, the captains nodded their agreement. They trained for this moment their entire lives, sleeping through centuries of peace for the chance to fight humanity's greatest battle. The vote was unanimous. The departure was scheduled for the next morning. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Harbinger, watching as the fleet formed up in perfect formation. 67 ships, each one a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Behind them, Earth hung in space like a blue marble, home to 10 billion souls who didn't even know they were about to be saved. All ships report ready, Jake said from his position at the tactical station. Jump drives are charged and synchronized. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Fleet communication, all ships. The view screen lit up with dozens of faces, her captains, her fellow warriors, her friends. They looked back at her with expressions of grim determination, ready to follow her into the dark. 300 years ago, Sarah began, humanity reached for the stars and got its hand slapped. We pulled back, built walls, and waited for the galaxy to prove we were right to be afraid. Today, we prove that fear was just the beginning of wisdom. She paused, looking at each face on the screen. We are the Deathworlder fleet. We are the children of a world that forged us in fire and pain. We are the answer to a question the galaxy didn't know it was asking. Today, we go to war not for conquest, but for survival. Not for glory, but for the chance to ensure that life itself continues to exist. The responses came back in a chorus of voices. Ragnarok standing by. Nemesis ready to jump. Apocalypse awaits your orders. Sarah felt a smile touch her lips. Then let's go remind the universe why they called us Deathworlders. All ships, jump on my mark. She raised her hand, watching as the jump drives built up their charge. 3, 2, 1, mark. The universe exploded into light and motion. Sarah felt her stomach drop as reality twisted around them, the familiar stars of the Sol system stretching into lines of fire before vanishing entirely. The Harbinger shuddered as it crossed the threshold between galaxies, its hull groaning under stresses that physics insisted shouldn't exist. Then, suddenly, they were through. The Andromeda galaxy spread out before them like a wound in space. Where there should have been billions of stars, there were only scattered clusters of light surrounded by vast regions of absolute darkness. The Devourers had been busy. Sweet Jesus, Jake breathed. They really did it. They killed an entire galaxy. Sarah studied the tactical display, watching as the fleet sensors mapped the devastation. Entire spiral arms had been consumed, leaving nothing but empty void. Only the galactic core remained relatively intact, its massive black hole apparently too dangerous for even the Devourers to approach. Set course for the core, she ordered. We'll establish our base there and begin operations. The journey to the galactic core took 3 days, and with each passing hour, the scope of the destruction became clearer. The Devourers hadn't just destroyed worlds, they'd unraveled the very fabric of spacetime, leaving regions where matter couldn't exist and energy couldn't flow. It was anti-creation on a scale that defied comprehension. Captain Ensign Parker called from the communications station. I'm receiving a transmission from the core. It's the confluence. The main screen flickered to life, showing Zephyr of the endless sky. The alien looked haggard, its once pristine appearance now marred by what looked like exhaustion and grief. Captain Chen, it said, relief evident in its musical voice. You came. We said we would. Sarah studied the alien's appearance. You look like hell. An apt description. The Devourers reached the core yesterday. We've lost half our remaining fleet trying to hold the line. Zephyr of the endless sky's image flickered with interference. We're transmitting our final research data now. Everything we've learned about the Devourers, all our tactical analyses. It's not much, but it's all we have. We'll make it count, Sarah promised. Where do you need us? Sector 7 Alpha. The Devourers are massing for a final assault on the core worlds. If they break through. The alien's voice trailed off. Sarah understood. The core worlds were the last bastion of civilization in the Andromeda galaxy. If they fell, the Devourers would have consumed everything, leaving them free to turn their attention to the Milky Way. All ships, battle stations, Sarah ordered. We're going in hot. The first battle began as soon as they dropped out of hyperspace. The Devourers were waiting for them, a swarm of organic ships that looked like they'd been grown rather than built. They moved with predatory grace, their hulls shifting and adapting as they closed the distance. Enemy contacts, bearing 037, Jake reported. Looks like about 500 ships. Sarah smiled grimly. Only 500? I'm almost insulted. She opened the fleet channel. All ships, this is Harbinger. Time to show these things what humans do best. Break and attack. The Deathworlder fleet scattered like a flock of metal birds, each ship moving with the precision of a trained killer. The Ragnarok led the charge, its massive guns spitting fire and death into the enemy formation. The Nemesis danced between the Devourer ships, its smaller but more agile frame allowing it to strike at weak points before vanishing into the void. Sarah watched the battle unfold on the tactical display, feeling a pride that threatened to overwhelm her. This was what they'd trained for, what they'd been born for. 3 centuries of peace had made the rest of the galaxy forget what humans were capable of when they were truly threatened. The Devourers fought back with weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Their ships fired beams of pure entropy that aged whatever they touched, turning hull plating into rust and crew members into dust. But the human ships were ready for them, their shields and armor designed to resist exotic attacks. Harbinger, this is Apocalypse, Captain Hassan's voice crackled over the comm. I'm launching all fighters. Let's see how these things handle a swarm of their own. Hundreds of small craft poured from the carrier's launch bays, each one piloted by a human who trained their entire life for this moment. They swarmed the Devourer ships like angry wasps, their weapons targeting the organic vessel's vital systems. The battle raged for hours. Sarah watched as human ingenuity and determination clashed against alien hunger and darkness. Ships died on both sides, but slowly, inexorably, the balance began to shift. Their regeneration is slowing, Jake reported. Looks like they can't adapt fast enough to our tactics. Sarah nodded. The Devourers were used to fighting civilizations that relied on a single tactical doctrine. But humans were different. They were chaos incarnate, capable of switching tactics in the middle of a battle and making it work through sheer bloody-minded determination. Harbinger, this is Ragnarok, Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the calm, strained but victorious. I'm reading massive energy signatures from the main Devourer ship. I think we got their attention. On the screen, the largest of the enemy vessels was turning toward the human fleet. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and its hull pulsed with malevolent energy. As Sarah watched, it began to glow with a sickly green light. All ships, evasive maneuvers, she shouted. Whatever they're doing, we don't want to be here when they finish. The Devourer ship's glow intensified, and suddenly space itself began to twist and buckle around it. Sarah felt the Harbinger shudder as reality warped, trying to drag them into whatever nightmare the aliens were creating. It's a null field. Jake shouted over the alarm klaxons. They're trying to unmake local spacetime. Sarah gritted her teeth, fighting to keep her ship stable as the universe tried to tear itself apart around them. On the tactical display, she could see several human ships caught in the effect, their hulls beginning to fade as they were erased from existence. Not today, she snarled. All ships, focus fire on that thing. Everything we have. The entire Deathworlder fleet turned its attention to the massive Devourer ship. 67 vessels poured their firepower into the alien construct, their weapons designed to crack planets and shatter moons. The alien ship's hull began to buckle and tear, its organic structure unable to withstand the concentrated assault. The null field collapsed with a sound like reality screaming. The Devourer ship broke apart, its pieces scattering through space like the fragments of a broken dream. The remaining enemy vessels, suddenly leaderless, began to retreat. Let them go, Sarah ordered as some of the human captains requested permission to pursue. We need to regroup and assess damage. The aftermath of the battle was sobering. The Deathworlder fleet had lost 12 ships, including the Vengeance and the Retribution. Good ships, good crews, gone forever. But they'd proven something important: the Devourers could be hurt, could be beaten. Captain, Ensign Parker said quietly. I'm receiving a transmission from the Confluence. They want to speak with you. Zephyr of the Endless Sky appeared on the screen, and Sarah was shocked by the change in the alien's appearance. Where before it had looked haggard, now it seemed almost hopeful. Captain Chen, it said, its musical voice carrying a note of wonder. Your fleet has accomplished in one battle what we could not achieve in a year of fighting. You've shown us that the Devourers are not invincible. We've shown them that humans don't know when to quit, Sarah corrected. But this is just the beginning. How many more of them are there? Thousands, the alien admitted. But they're spread across multiple star systems, consuming what remains of our civilization. If we can coordinate our attacks, strike at their weak points, we can bleed them dry, Sarah finished. She looked at the tactical display, studying the positions of the remaining Devourer forces. Send us everything you have on their deployment patterns. We're going to hit them where they don't expect it. The next few weeks became a blur of hit-and-run attacks. The Deathworlder fleet split into smaller task forces, each one targeting a different aspect of the Devourer invasion. They struck at supply lines, disrupted consumption operations, and generally made life miserable for the alien invaders. Captain Rodriguez and the Ragnarok specialized in direct confrontation, taking on Devourer battle groups in head-to-head combat. His ship bore the scars of a dozen engagements, but its crew had developed an almost supernatural ability to predict and counter enemy tactics. Captain Vasquez and the Nemesis became masters of stealth warfare, using the ship's advanced cloaking systems to appear behind enemy lines and strike at critical targets. She'd personally destroyed 3 Devourer command ships, throwing their forces into chaos. Captain Hassan and the Apocalypse pioneered the use of fighter swarms against the organic vessels. His pilots had learned to exploit the Devourer's regenerative abilities, tricking them into overextending their resources before striking at their cores. But it was Captain Lu Wei and the Defiance who made the discovery that changed everything. Captain Chen, Lu Wei's voice came through the calm, tight with excitement. You need to see this. I've found something. Sarah was aboard the Harbinger, planning their next operation when the message arrived. She immediately ordered a course change, bringing her ship to rendezvous with the Defiance at the edge of a dead system. What she found there defied explanation. The Defiance was holding position near what looked like a massive organic structure, part ship, part space station, part something else entirely. It was clearly Devourer construction, but unlike anything they'd encountered before. It's a breeding facility, Lu Wei explained as Sarah came aboard the Defiance. They're not just consuming matter for energy. They're converting it into new Devourer ships, new warriors. This is how they've been able to maintain their numbers despite our attacks. Sarah studied the readings from the structure. It was enormous, easily large enough to house 100 ships. And according to the sensors, it was actively producing new Devourers, birthing them from the consumed matter of dead worlds. How many of these things are there? She asked. We've identified at least 50 in this galaxy alone, Lu Wei replied. And if they're already seeding the void between galaxies? Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Devourers weren't just an invasion force, they were a plague, spreading through the universe and converting everything they touched into more of themselves. And they were breeding faster than the human fleet could destroy them. We need to hit them all, she said finally. Simultaneously. If we give them time to adapt, to reinforce. It's suicide, Lu Wei said bluntly. We'd have to split the fleet into individual ships, maybe pairs at most. No backup, no support. And these facilities are heavily defended. Sarah nodded grimly. She'd known this moment would come, had felt it approaching like a storm on the horizon. The final gambit, the last desperate throw of the dice. Send a message to all ships, she ordered. Emergency conference. It's time to end this. The holographic meeting took place in the Harbinger's briefing room, with the other captains appearing as translucent figures around the table. Sarah looked at each face, seeing the same grim determination she felt in her own heart. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, we have a problem. The Devourers are breeding faster than we can kill them. In 6 months, maybe less, they'll have enough ships to launch their invasion of our galaxy. We need to stop them now, before they become unstoppable. She activated the tactical display, showing the locations of the breeding facilities. 50 targets. 55 ships. We can do this, but only if we're willing to pay the price. The silence stretched for long moments. Finally, Captain Rodriguez spoke. What's the plan? We split up. Each ship, or pair of ships at most, takes a target. We hit them all at once, before they can coordinate a response. Total commitment, no reserves. And if we fail? Captain Vasquez asked. Sarah met her gaze steadily. Then we die knowing we gave everything we had. But we won't fail. We can't afford to. The vote was unanimous. In 12 hours, the Deathworlder fleet would scatter across the galaxy for their final battle. Some would survive, some would die, but all would fight with the fury of a species that refused to surrender. Sarah spent the last few hours before the mission walking the corridors of the Harbinger, talking with her crew. They were young, most of them, born and raised in the peaceful centuries after the first contact disaster. They'd never seen real war, never faced the possibility of death in service to their species. But they were ready. She could see it in their eyes, the same determination that had driven humanity to the stars in the first place. They were scared, but they were also proud. Proud to serve, proud to fight, proud to die if necessary for the survival of their species. All ships, prepare for final jump, Sarah announced as she returned to the bridge. Remember, we go in fast and we go in hard. No mercy, no quarter. The galaxy is counting on us. The responses came back in a chorus of voices, each captain acknowledging their orders. Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she listened to them, these people who'd become her family, her friends, her fellow warriors. After today, she might never see most of them again. All ships, jump. The fleet scattered like seeds on the wind, each ship carrying death and destruction to the Devourer's most vital targets. Sarah watched them disappear one by one, their jump signatures fading into the background radiation of space. Where are we headed, Captain? Jake asked from his position at the tactical station. Sarah smiled grimly. The big one. The primary breeding facility at the galactic core. If we're going to make a statement, we might as well make it loud. The jump to the core took them through regions of space that had been so thoroughly consumed that they barely existed anymore. Sarah watched the void scroll past on the viewscreen, thinking about the billions of lives that had been snuffed out to create this emptiness. The Devourers weren't just conquerors, they were destroyers, the enemies of existence itself. Dropping out of hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. The Harbinger shuddered back into normal space, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The breeding facility was even larger than she'd expected, a living mountain of organic matter that pulsed with its own internal light. Around it, a swarm of Devourer ships patrolled like antibodies protecting a vital organ. Enemy contacts, bearing multiple, Jake reported. I count at least 200 ships, various sizes. Sarah nodded. She'd expected heavy resistance. This was their most important target, the heart of the Devourer's reproductive capacity. They wouldn't give it up without a fight. Signal the facility, she ordered. Full broadband, all frequencies. Ensign Parker looked confused. Captain? What message should I send? Sarah stood up, straightening her uniform. Tell them that the children of the Deathworld have come calling. Tell them that humanity sends its regards. The response was immediate and violent. The Devourer ships turned toward the Harbinger like a swarm of angry insects, their weapons charging with malevolent energy. Sarah watched them come, feeling a savage joy rising in her chest. All weapons, full power, she ordered. Let's dance. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. The Harbinger fought alone against impossible odds, its weapons spitting fire and death into the enemy formation. The ship's crew worked with mechanical precision, each person playing their part in the deadly ballet of space combat. Sarah stood at the center of it all, her voice calm and steady as she issued orders. This was what she'd trained for, what she'd lived for. Not the quiet years of peace, but this moment of absolute clarity when everything depended on her skill and determination. The Devourer ships came at them in waves, their organic hulls absorbing punishment that would have destroyed conventional vessels. But the Harbinger was no conventional ship. It was a product of human ingenuity and 3 centuries of military development, armed with weapons that could crack planets and shielded by technology that bent the laws of physics. Hull breach on Deck 7, Jake reported. Damage control teams responding. Sarah nodded, not taking her eyes off the tactical display. They were taking damage, but they were giving as good as they got. The Harbinger's weapons had already destroyed a dozen enemy ships, and her crew was just getting started. Captain, Ensign Parker called out. I'm receiving reports from the other ships. They're engaging their targets across the galaxy. Sarah allowed herself a moment of pride. Her people were out there, fighting and dying for the future of their species. Win or lose, they would make the Devourers pay for every inch of space. Harbinger, this is Ragnarok, Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled through the calm. Target eliminated. Moving to support Nemesis. Apocalypse reporting successful strike, Captain Hassan added. Facility destroyed, but we took heavy damage. Don't think we'll make it home. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command. These were her people, her responsibility. Every loss was a dagger in her heart. All ships, this is Harbinger, she broadcast. Whatever happens, I want you to know that I'm proud of every one of you. You've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of when we're backed into a corner. The responses came back in a chorus of voices, each captain acknowledging her words. Sarah felt tears threatening to fall, but she forced them back. There would be time for grief later, if any of them survived to feel it. Captain, Jake said urgently. The facility is powering up some kind of weapon. Energy readings are off the charts. Sarah looked at the tactical display, watching as the massive breeding facility began to glow with the same sickly green light they'd seen before. The Devourers were preparing to unmake local spacetime, to erase the Harbinger from existence. Not this time, she said quietly. All power to forward shields. Ramming speed. Jake's eyes widened. Captain, if we hit that thing at full velocity, we'll all die, Sarah finished. But we'll take them with us. That's the point. The Harbinger accelerated toward the breeding facility, its engines straining against the laws of physics. Around them, the Devourer ships tried to intercept, but Sarah's crew fought them off with desperate fury. This was their final act, their last gift to the galaxy. All hands, this is the captain, Sarah announced over the ship's intercom. We're about to hit the facility. It's been an honor serving with you all. The breeding facility loomed larger and larger on the viewscreen, its alien architecture filling their vision. Sarah could see the weapon charging, reality beginning to warp around it. In seconds, the null field would activate, and the Harbinger would be erased from existence. 5 seconds to impact, Jake reported. 3, 2, 1. The Harbinger struck the breeding facility like a spear of light in fury. The ship's reinforced hull punched through the organic structure, its momentum carrying it deep into the alien construct's heart.